One of the most disturbing aspects of depersonalization is the existential thoughts that come with it. But once you understand why they're happening, you'll see that they're temporary, harmless, and in fact, nothing to worry about. Hey everyone, I'm Sean O'Connor, author of the Depersonalization Manual. I suffered with chronic depersonalization for 2 years before I recovered completely, and in the more than 10 years since, I've helped thousands of people around the world to recover with my book, The Depersonalization Manual. And today, I'm going to show you why DP causes scary existential thoughts, why you don't need to be afraid of them, and how to deal with them. Let's get started. I hear about these scary, intrusive thoughts from DP sufferers all the time. Thoughts like, am I dead? Am I going crazy? I feel like I'm not real. It feels like I'm living in a dream and I can't wake up. Am I in purgatory? I feel like I'm still high and I can't come down. Back when I had depersonalization, I had scary thoughts like this constantly. I was convinced at various points that I had died, that I was in purgatory, that I was stuck in a dream. It was terrifying. Existential thoughts about things outside yourself are also very common, like looking at other people and thinking, how do human beings exist? Or looking at animals like dogs and cats and thinking, how are these creatures even possible? Books and films with philosophical angles like The Matrix can freak you out. And scientific topics like, say, quantum mechanics or the vastness of space can suddenly seem terrifying. With depersonalization, scary philosophical thoughts like these can hit you like a ton of bricks hundreds of times a day. I remember that I had a physical reaction every time I had one of these intrusive thoughts. My stomach would sink, my muscles would tighten up. It was horrible. And over time, these thoughts started to turn into their own phobias. I became particularly scared of going to the bathroom because looking into the mirror was so scary. I was scared of even going outside because the sky seemed so huge. At one point, I was scared that I might just disappear into thin air. These thoughts can become so overwhelming that you become convinced that you're about to go crazy, that your mind is being pushed so hard that it must be on the verge of breaking and going insane. You start to worry that you'll never be able to stop thinking like this. It's a horrible experience, and it's such a massive, overwhelming change in how you think that it couldn't possibly have a simple explanation, could it? Well, guess what? It does. So let's break this down into 3 simple steps and find out exactly why these thoughts are happening and why you don't need to be scared of them. Number 1, the feelings of depersonalization. The feelings of depersonalization are part of your brain's natural response to stress and anxiety. In the same way that anxiety produces physical responses like tense muscles, increased heart rate, etc., it also produces mental effects like depersonalization. These feelings are not permanent and they can't hurt you. But still, feeling like you're in a dream, like you're not real, it's pretty bizarre and frightening. And while you're experiencing them, you're frantically trying to make sense of these bizarre feelings. Why do you feel like you're cut off from reality? Why do you feel like you're stuck in a dream? Why do you feel like you're still high and you can't come down? Why are you struggling to keep anything in your short-term memory? There has to be a big explanation, right? Which brings us to number 2. When your brain is in an anxious state, it tends to jump to the worst, scariest conclusions. It's called catastrophizing. So instead of considering simple, logical answers like, I have a temporary anxiety condition, you instead jump to explanations like, you feel cut off from reality because you're dead or dreaming. You feel stuck in a dream because you're in purgatory or a coma. Or you still feel high because a drug flipped a switch in your brain and now you're stuck like this forever. Now, are any of these scenarios actually possible? Of course not. But we have a tendency to bypass the simplest, logical answers and jump to the most frightening, far-fetched conclusions. And now, let's look at the final piece of the puzzle. Number 3, racing thoughts. One of the most common mental symptoms associated with depersonalization, or any anxiety-based condition, is racing thoughts. This is when your mind is going at top speed, constantly jumping from one thought to another, finding it hard to focus. So you combine the feelings of depersonalization with your brain's desperate attempts to make sense of them, while tending to catastrophize and all going at top speed? Of course you're going to get scary, intrusive thoughts, ranging from the commonplace, about dogs and cats, to existential and philosophical, about the nature of reality. But here's the good news. As scary as these thoughts might seem, they're temporary. They can't hurt you, and they're not going to turn into anything worse. Why? Because the thoughts themselves aren't important. They're just thoughts. Thinking about the size of the universe is essentially the same as thinking about what you'll have for breakfast tomorrow morning. The only reason that one seems more important or scary than the other is because we spend time on it and allow it to spiral off into a bunch of other thoughts and then a panic attack. And here's another important point. If you've been suffering with depersonalization for a while, it might feel like you can't even imagine these thoughts not being there. You're scared that this new, anxious way of thinking is permanent. Well, guess what? Thoughts like that are the anxiety. Of course there's been no permanent change in your thought process. That's just more catastrophizing. And here's more good news. You don't need to address these thoughts one by one. Depersonalization can seem like it's 1,000 different thoughts and fears that each need to be addressed individually. But in reality, the opposite is the truth. All of the fears, the racing thoughts, the depersonalization itself, they're all driven by one thing: anxiety. Deal with the anxiety that's causing them, and all of these thoughts, even the most scary, intrusive, existential, philosophical thoughts, will fade away and stop as if they had never been there, along with every other symptom of depersonalization.
Is there anything I've missed? What depersonalization thoughts have you been experiencing? Let me know in the comments section below.
And one last thing. If you want tons more information on depersonalization recovery, check out my website at dpmanual.com, where you'll find everything you need to know, including my complete guide to recovery, the Depersonalization Manual. If you have any comments or questions, just leave them in the comments section below and I'll make sure to answer and help you out. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and if you found this video helpful, please do like and share. Thanks so much for watching, guys.